So, as we were just discussing in the group, there's a UN resolution to shun using the death penalty for pregnant women, people with mental problems, blasphemy, sodomy, homosexuality, stuff like that. Where in the United States, we're like, clearly that's wrong, we don't do it. So we're trying, as United Nations, to influence the rest of the ones that are still doing stuff like stoning people to death after they got raped and stuff like that. We're trying to slowly bring them into the civilized world, I guess you could word it. First of all, I was surprised that there was two sides to this. I shared this article just saying, like, look guys, why are we doing this? And a bunch of people took the side of, good, we should have voted that way, and I was honestly shocked, which is why I'm making this. I don't think the full nature of this has been grasped. So first of all, yes, it's non-binding. That means it doesn't matter. This is just a thing where we're getting together and we're having a discussion and we're bringing some of the other countries to the table and we're like, hey guys, here's what you're doing. We don't do it that way, and we're just giving reasons. Like, here's the way we stand on it, and you say that via a vote, and you say why. There's only 4 pages of the why. I have it printed out here. Here's the whole resolution. The entire resolution uses words like requests, calls upon, welcomes, noting, condemns, urges. This is no way legal. It's just urging people to do something. It's suggesting. It's giving advice. And as we've seen, pure pressure, especially if 200 countries are doing something and we're like trying to tell the one country they're doing something wrong, lots of times that works, just as protests work, just like petitions work. It does put pressure on people. Even though someone signs 1 million signatures on a petition and gives it in, that doesn't mean that person has to do what the petition says. But when you have that many people pressuring you, it does create change, which is the purpose of the UN. So there is a purpose. So just like we were explaining, it's not legal. But picture a hurricane comes, and the president says, best wishes, we're going to try to help, and stuff like that. Did he need to say that? No. Was all that stuff he just said legally binding? No. But it's coming out, showing where we stand, where our priorities are. It's just setting leadership. It's giving people something to look to. It's giving them information like transparency. Okay, here's what they're saying, here's what they're trying to accomplish. They're filling people in. This is the same thing, except for it's global. We're saying, hey, we're not cool with this, and everyone else says, yeah, we agree, and so on. Yeah, anyway. Here is the entire resolution. It's only 4 pages. I'm going to quickly go over it really fast. First page basically just says we're convening, and this resolution's happening, and at the bottom, it kind of starts off with, we're reaffirming what we've discussed before, that there needs to be protections for people who are facing the death penalty, like having a lawyer, knowing their rights, things like that. Just safeguards. People need that. Page 2 starts off with our Secretary General talking about how the children of parents are sentenced to the death penalty and how we're not cool with that either, and that needs to change. I'm going to read what the Secretary General said after that. On the question of the death penalty, the Secretary General examined the disproportional impact of the use of the death penalty on poor or economically vulnerable individuals, foreign nationals, individuals exercising the rights to freedom of religion or belief and freedom of expression, and the discriminatory use of the death penalty against persons belonging to racial and ethnic minorities, its discriminatory use based on gender or sexual orientation, and its use against individuals with mental or intellectual disabilities. This is pretty much what it's being used for, how it's being a slippery slope into using worse things or using it for bad reasons. They're pointing out those reasons and how we're not trying to take away their entire right, but we're saying at least don't do it for these, which eventually led to those. Then it goes on to explain how there's torture, and we don't want that either. Then goes on, welcomes the fact that many states are applying a moratorium on the use of the death penalty. So basically it's saying, hey, there's some people that are taking our advice and not doing it anymore. Shout out to them. That's just part of it. Strongly deploring the fact that the use of the death penalty leads to violations of human rights. Basically what the Secretary General was saying. On to page 3. Then it goes on to deplore the fact of basically everything that the General said about how this is used against the poor, the vulnerable, and so on. And then it just goes on to individually condemn these things. Don't kill people under the age of 18 with mental disabilities. Just reiterating here under that states are required adequate assistance of counsel at every stage of the proceedings of this death penalty, including detention and arrest. You need counsel, and you should have rights during this whole thing. Now here on page 3, it emphasizes that the lack of transparency on the use of the death penalty quickly escalates into direct consequences for human rights. So the less transparent a country is, the less they document it, the less public this information is, the more quickly it's used to just target political enemies or just used for the wrong reasons. So transparency is all this is calling for. So pretty much all that's been brought up in the past. Now it starts here, the new stuff it wants to discuss. So number 1 goes on to say that people accused or sentenced to the death penalty need rights. Number 2 says we're basically trying to get rid of the death penalty altogether. That's the ultimate goal of this, just to kind of get people together on the same page and kind of do away with it and find a better way. Number 3 says, if you aren't getting rid of it, at least try to listen to some more advice about not using it against mentally disabled people and children and stuff like that. That's all it says. Number 4 just wants legal representation for the accused. Number 5 reiterates, don't use it on mentally disabled people. Now we're on the final page. I still haven't found anything that would make us say, screw all this. We're voting directly against this. Number 6 urges states to not use the death penalty for reasons such as blasphemy, adultery, same-sex relations, etc. Number 7 is trying to protect foreign nationals. Sometimes, let's say, we have an embassy somewhere, and all of a sudden, politically, we're not getting along, and they just kill our ambassadors. They're trying to protect people like that. Number 8 and number 9 is basically saying, start taking down some of this information. Start gathering the data for statistics. We want to know the age of the people being killed, the nationality, trying to find trends, trying to find ways of people being killed and how to disrupt those trends or whatever. And finally, number 10 through 14 says, let's start gathering this data for the year 2019, and we'll have something to bring together for more solid information. So we want to start gathering this data, seeing what we can figure out, and we're bringing all this back up in 2019. That's the whole thing. I didn't miss anything. It's all here. I know it's kind of long, but I cannot find a reason that all these countries voted for it, and we, along with like Iran, voted against it. It just seems crazy to me. So the video is pretty much over. I covered everything of what's going on. Now this part of the video is directed specifically at Dane. I'm kind of making this whole thing as a counter argument to his stance on this whole UN resolution. To give you clarification, what Dane said was, it does not matter that the United States voted no. Now, I like to point out this example, and I think it's an equal metaphor, right? So let's say we have a situation. Dane tortures turtles, and let's say it's not illegal to do so because he calls it hunting or some shit. Dane tortures turtles. Steph, me, Cliff, D, Matt, Carrie, and Morgan were like, whoa, that's not cool. Carrie says, let's all assemble and get together. So we all do. We all sit at a round table. We sit down together, and Carrie says, since we're all together, let's discuss this Dane torturing turtles thing. So, first of all, we all explain, like, why we're not cool with it, or whatever, and Dane explains maybe why he is cool with it. And so she's like, well, just for the hell of it, let's take a vote. If you're not cool with people torturing turtles, raise your hand. And most people raise their hand. But then she goes, raise your hand if you're fine with it. And that's me raising my hand and saying, yeah, I don't give a shit. He can do what he wants. And they're saying, well, what's your reason why you're voting for that? And I say, it doesn't matter what I vote for. If we can't force him, then it doesn't matter. So I just don't understand, like, why would I even vote in that situation? Because clearly, even though I raised my hand, I'm not actually for torturing turtles, all right? I raised my hand because I think none of this mattered at all. So that seems to me like trolling. Like, I'm just saying the opposite of how I feel. For what reason? Like, either, why don't I just stay silent if I disagree with this whole thing? But if I am participating, why would I vote against it then, since I'm already here and I'm participating? I still can't figure out the answer to this question, and Dane's not the only one. There are several people in our group that took this position, and I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to use a metaphor. I understand that they said it doesn't work. It's not binding. It's not legally binding. So, but the fact is, we're there. We're participating, and people are listening to us. We have a platform. We have a stage. So not only are we raising our hand, we're taking a vote, but the entire planet is listening to us. We're the leaders, we're the big dogs, and they're looking at us, and we're saying, yeah, we don't care, go for it. Keep murdering people. Keep stoning women to death, and so on. Like, I just don't understand. So I'm making this to really explain my position, and so this way the people against this can kind of point to where in my logic that they're disagreeing with, so we could figure out. I'm just trying to figure this out. So this, I would like to know, what part of this doesn't make sense to you, Dane, or what part do you disagree with?